OK 啦嚇。
OK，各位視頻朋友。
So are you done, photographers? 好，唔該晒。
好，唔該晒。
Thank you so much. Friends of the media, welcome to the press conference on the 2023 Consumption Voucher Scheme. Chairing this press conference, we have the Financial Secretary, Mr. Paul Chan, and accompanying him, we have Mr. Tony Wong, Government Chief Information Officer acting, and Mr. Howard Lee, Head Policy Coordination of the Financial Secretary's Private Office. First, the Financial Secretary will say a few words. Thank you. Good afternoon. Members of the public and the media. In my budget this year, I announced that we will be launching another round of consumption vouchers, and the vouchers will be dispersed to eligible residents and new arrivals in 2 tranches with a total value of $5,000. For eligible non-permanent residents, they will be given vouchers at half value. The press conference today is to brief you on the arrangements in the disbursement of the consumption vouchers. In mid-April, for those who have successfully registered for the 2022 Consumption Voucher Scheme will receive the first batch of vouchers. Now, we want to disperse the vouchers as soon as possible. That's why for the first phase, or the first disbursement, those who to receive the vouchers must not change the stored value facility that they used for the last scheme. So the the voucher will be paid directly to the registered stored value facility account. If there are any problems with the account, for example, the account is lost or is no longer used, then there is a channel for members of the public to change the account number. Now, for this round of the consumption voucher, is launched because of our considerations in relation to our economy. For example, last year the economic growth contracted. The economy contracted by 3.5%, and there's also contraction in the retail sector by about 1%. Now, yes, we're starting to recover, but there's need to reinforce this recovery, and many in the lower to middle income group are still under much pressure. So that's why we're launching again another round of the consumption voucher scheme. And we, of course, have considered the financial position of the government, so as for what we could afford, we would try to support members of the public and SMEs. Now, there are 2 purposes for issuing this consumption voucher. One is to consolidate economic recovery and support economic recovery. And second is to promote a wider use of electronic payment. Now, there are 6 stored value facility operators. We found that from previous consumption voucher schemes, there's an increase of about 10 million accounts for these operators because of the scheme. And so there is an increase of 190,000 account holders. So that shows that the consumption voucher scheme thus help to promote the use of electronic payment. As for the use of electronic payment in retail business, there's an increase of 60-70% compared to the 2 or 3 years ago, and the amount was $24 billion, and these are the data for 2022. Now, next month we're going to launch the first installment of the consumption voucher disbursement. And then we have a campaign for Happy Hong Kong, and so it's launched. So we are tying in the consumption voucher disbursements with the schemes, with the campaign, so people could go out to dine and enjoy this and have fun in this campaign using the consumption vouchers. Now my colleague will give you the details about the scheme. Yes, good afternoon. We are to brief you on the detailed arrangements for the disbursement of the consumption vouchers. As the Financial Secretary pointed out in the budget this year, for every eligible permanent Hong Kong resident aged 18 or above and new arrivals, there will be 2 installments of consumption vouchers totaling $5,000. And through different admission schemes, for those residing in Hong Kong or studying in Hong Kong, they would be given the vouchers in half value, that is $2,500 in total. You take the example of eligible recipients for $5,000. We will use the registration information from the 2022 consumption voucher scheme, and then on the 16th of April this year, we will disperse $3,000 of consumption vouchers to all these registered recipients. And then on the 16th of July, we will disperse the second installment of $2,000 worth of consumption vouchers. As for residents who will receive the vouchers in half value, again, we will still make use of registration information from the scheme from last year. And then for those who have successfully registered for the scheme last year, they will be given $1,500 on the 16th of April in the first installment. And again, on the 16th of July, the remaining $1,000 will be dispersed to these eligible recipients as the second installment. And then for the disbursement on the 16th of April, we estimate that about 6.4 million people who successfully registered last year will benefit from this first installment. And these registrants could receive the consumption voucher from the stored value facility accounts they used for the last round of the consumption vouchers. In other words, if their account remains valid or they've not lost in their accounts, there's no need for them to register afresh. And the first installment will be paid directly to the stored value facility accounts for receiving the last round of consumption vouchers.
The disbursement timetable for those receiving $5,000. For those receiving the vouchers through the Alipay Hong Kong, BOC Pay, PayMe from HSBC, Tap and Go, and WeChat Pay Hong Kong, they will get the $3,000 voucher. The voucher will be valid up to October 31st this year, so people will get roughly 6 months to spend the voucher. For those who will be getting $5,000, on July 16th, they can use those 5 electronic wallets to collect the second tranche, the $2,000 voucher, which will be valid up to the end of January next month. So they will again get roughly 6 months to spend the amount. We have covered 5 options. Then there are those who opt for the Octopus card. For those who will be getting the $5,000 vouchers, on April the 16th, they will get the $3,000 voucher. As for the second disbursement, they will get the $2,000 voucher. Therefore, Octopus users, they will get the same. They get the second tranche on the same date, on July 16th. But then there's a condition. They have to use up the $3,000 from the first tranche through eligible spending, and then they can get the second disbursement on July 16th at the earliest. Some people may take longer to use up the balance from the first installment. They get 5 more chances. Simply put, if there is remaining balance on June 30th, they can use up the amount by July 30th, and then on August the 16th, they can get their second installment, and so on. The idea is that they have to use up the $3,000 voucher on eligible spending, and then on November the 16th, they can get the remaining $2,000. In terms of the stored value facility accounts, or SVF accounts, in April, the vouchers will go into the same SVF accounts used in the voucher scheme last year. But then for some people, their SVF accounts may be no longer valid. They may have lost or returned the Octopus cards. For these people, they have to update their registration records within the specified period, and then they can get the first installment. If people need to update their SVF account details, they have to use the same SVF, just a different account for the first installment of the vouchers. This means for the first installment, people cannot switch to a different SVF. And there are ways for people to update their SVF account details. There are 3 options. First, there's the website of the consumption voucher scheme. They can update their records online. The second option, they can download an application form for amendment of registration information from the scheme website, or they can call hotline 18500, and then they can email or send the form by post, and then when they return it, they have to complete the form, and then along with a copy of their Hong Kong ID card, they can send it to an address. Now, they don't have to put a stamp on the envelope. The last option is to visit the 8 temporary service centers in person. The staff will be there to help people. As I mentioned, there will be 8 temporary service centers. This slide shows the 8 centers and the addresses. You can find them across the territory. These are easily accessible locations in Wan Chai, North Point, Mong Kok, Kwun Tong, Tsuen Wan, Tuen Mun, Sha Tin, and Tai Po. If people don't want to wait, they can also call the 18500 hotline to make a reservation beforehand. These temporary service centers will be open from March 11th, that is tomorrow, Saturday, all the way to the 29th of March. That's roughly 3 weeks. These centers will be open from Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. For some people, they may have to update their SVF account details. They need to retrieve some old details. They want to find out which account they used last year. If they need to do this, they can go to the scheme website. There's a link for them to access the details of their registered SVF account. Sometimes people may have more than one Octopus card and they cannot recall which card they used last year. They can also call us at the hotline 18500. they can also retrieve their registration reference number. They just have to provide some details, personal particulars, and then the staff at the centers will be able to send these people their registration reference numbers and the numbers they used in the past through SMS messages. We believe the public have received many SMS messages related to consumption schemes over the years. They can look up these messages. Every time we use the same number, 60591120, people can look up their reference numbers in those messages. For updates to SVF account details, people have to do that within a specified period. That is, from today, March 10th, 6 p.m. to the 29th of this month. In a moment, in a few hours' time, roughly 6 p.m., the website of this consumption voucher scheme will go live. People can look up information they need and their account details, etc. Now, I want to turn to the Draw You card. Some seniors may be wondering, they now have the Draw You card. Now, how should they get their consumption vouchers? Can they still use their old Octopus cards? Holders of Draw You cards, if they still have their old Octopus card, the card is still valid. No further action is needed from them. They can still collect their consumption vouchers in April with their old Octopus card. For Draw You card holders who have returned their old Octopus cards, or if they've lost their card, or if the card is no longer valid, now they can use their Draw You cards to collect the vouchers. And there are a few ways to do it. They can call the Octopus hotline 2969-5588, or they can check out the link on the website of the consumption voucher scheme, or they can download the application form for amendment of registration information from the website, or they can visit the 8 temporary service centers. Now, the coverage of vouchers.
For the coverage of vouchers, the methods of issuing or receiving the using of voucher and the coverage is the same as that for the scheme last year. The consumption vouchers can be used at all local retail, catering and service merchants, both physical ones and online ones. But then the vouchers cannot be used for paying government fees, public utility tariffs, or for person-to-person payment or encashment. So that's all by way of introduction. Thank you. Thank you, Howard. Wonder if you have any questions. Okay, the floor is now open to questions. Before you speak, please identify the organization you represent and please limit yourself to 2 questions. The first one, at the far end, last row, the gentleman in gray. Good afternoon, I'm from TMHK. about switching to a different facility or operator. Why can't it be allowed in the first installment? What are the technical difficulties? And for the second installment, does it mean that people could switch to a different stored value facility? And do you have any information at hand as to how many people may need to replace their lost payment stored value facility account? And you only allow 3 weeks for amendment. Is that too short a period because the seniors may not know that they have lost their autobus card, or they don't know how to do the amendment, and it's only on the 16th of April when they find that they don't receive any money for the new autobus card, then they know they should have used an older card. So would you then still give them the payment? Now, because we want to disperse the first installment as soon as possible, so the quickest and easiest way is to go by the registered account for the consumption voucher scheme from last year. So then we could immediately pay out the vouchers in April. And as I mentioned, on the 16th of April, people will be able to receive the vouchers. Your second question, maybe some people have lost their card, or the cards are no longer valid. They need to renew their account. Well, how many people are in that situation? We estimate that to be about 50,000. The third question is, can people switch to a different stored value facility in the second installment? The answer is yes. The fourth question, if the previously registered card is no longer valid, and then someone is not able to make the amendment by the 16th of April, it doesn't mean that the person won't get the voucher. It's just that they won't get it on the 16th of April, because we will handle such cases when we announce the details for the second installment. Next, near me, the last row, the lady in brown. I'm from commercial radio. For eligible persons under different admission schemes, do they include those on the top talent list? If they are eligible, when do they have to arrive at Hong Kong before they become eligible? And for those in different admission schemes, how much are we talking about, and what about the administrative costs for the recipients under different admission schemes? And then you have to check their eligibility, of course. Now, for those who are eligible, first they have to be either permanent Hong Kong residents or new arrivals. For these people, they will receive the full $5,000 of vouchers in 2 installments. For non-permanent Hong Kong residents who are eligible, they will receive the vouchers at half value. So under what admission scheme a person comes to Hong Kong is irrelevant to the eligibility criteria for consumption vouchers. And so who are the eligible groups? We're talking about the same groups as for last year's scheme. Over here, this lady.
TMHK. So actually there were some demands from lawmakers that people should be allowed to pay for their electricity bills using the consumption voucher. So are there any reasons for not following these demands by lawmakers and even the community? And the second question, Mr. Chen, you said that the Happy Hong Kong campaign will be launched next month. So along with this campaign, you hope the vouchers can be used to stimulate the economy. But some say previous rounds of vouchers didn't have much effect. So are you still confident about the effects on the economy this time? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we have been trying very hard to make the scope of eligible expenditure as wide as possible. At the moment, we think the primary objective of the consumption voucher scheme is to stimulate domestic consumption. The current arrangement is already the best we can do. Referencing to past experience, about slightly over 60% of the consumption voucher amount were spent on retail, and another about 20-some% on F&B, the rest being for services. And the amount spent on traveling is pretty small, about 5%. Well, you know, when our citizens can utilize this consumption voucher to spend on different things, the money they originally intend for other purposes, for this kind of purposes, can be saved. And this money can be spent for electricity or other public utilities. So I think the current arrangement is already striking a proper balance between the policy objective of the consumption voucher scheme and the maximum convenience afforded to our citizens. As to the effect of the consumption voucher scheme, we have looked at the consumption amount, the consumption expenditure amount. Say, for example, last year, actually every time when we disperse the consumption voucher, we can see the increase in retail sales. Last year, when we despite the economic headwind, despite the challenging economic situation, in respect of private consumption, in the quarter that we dispersed the consumption voucher, still private consumption registered positive increase.
OK， 下一條提問係
Next question, please. At the far end, second last row, the gentleman in a black suit. I'm from TVB. Okay, we have returned to normality. The situation has changed. So, do you expect shop operators to offer fewer discounts? Howard.
For every time we pay a fee to the payment platforms, we ask them to give that back to merchants and consumers. Similarly, this year, we ask these payment platforms to offer rebates to consumers and merchants. And there will be all kinds of promotional offers and collaborations. So they will stay the same. Next question. The gentleman with the tie. I'm from cable TV. For Octopus, the plan was to lift the store value limit in April. Does it mean that Octopus users can get $3,000, the full value, in April? Second question, for the consumption vouchers, will that worsen the outflow of money? If we stick to the practice last year, some may have left Hong Kong, some may have emigrated by now. Will they benefit from the consumption vouchers this year? Now, some airlines are offering tickets where people can spend their vouchers on that. Will that defeat the purpose of boosting local consumption? Howard, please. Thank you for the questions. For airlines and the travel industry, they were hit hard by COVID. They also hire many local workers. People can only spend their vouchers in Hong Kong. For spending on local travel agencies, we think that can also contribute to the local economy. On Octopus, they're trying to raise the store value limit. So far, they are working on this. The priority is to make the system robust. The best is to have the system in place that's user-friendly. We have to see their progress. If they have a system that works, of course, that's good. For those who have emigrated, for those who have left Hong Kong for good, they are not eligible. The same approach we adopted last year. The next question at the far end, second last row, the lady in a jacket.
MP. So what is the amount of economic gain you estimate this round of voucher will bring? And as many Hong Kongers have chosen to travel overseas after the reopening, are you worried that businesses won't be able to benefit from this round of voucher? Thank you.
The economic impact of this time round, the consumption voucher scheme this year, is about 0.6% positive increase in the GDP, according to the estimate by the government economist. When we disperse this consumption voucher, we require this voucher to be spent in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, there are different merchants and services providers. Over the past 3 years, in fact, travel agencies have been suffering. By allowing people to use their consumption voucher to give business to the travel agencies would be, in a way, able to help them. And on the other hand, I think consumption is something to do with the mood of the individuals. If people are happy, if people are in good mood, usually they tend to spend more. So on balance, we think that allowing the widest possible scope for this consumption voucher, and thereby giving our citizens the widest possible option, is the best way to go.
OK， 下一條提問啦嚇。
Next question. At the far end, last row, the lady in the middle. I'm from Now TV. For this round of vouchers, how much of a boost to the economy will there be? There are all kinds of admission schemes. Those people can get $2,500. What are the reasons for this amount? Thank you. The vouchers this year are expected to have a boost to the local GDP of 0.6%. Now, for those who come here under various admission schemes who are not permanent residents yet, we will give them half the amount, the same approach last year. Some of them are students, others are here for work. They are not permanent residents yet, but we want to benefit them. Many of them have been contributing to Hong Kong. Next question. The lady at the front with a pink mask on. I'm from Ming Pao. You mentioned happy Hong Kong, happy spending. For the first installment in April and the second installment in July, what activities will there be to go hand in hand with the vouchers? And for those who come here under various admission schemes, they get half the amount. So how many admission schemes will there be covered? Are there 6 admission schemes? How many people are involved? What's the total amount involved? I will take the first question. Mr. Lee will take the second question for Happy Hong Kong. Once the preparations are almost complete, we will let you know what activities there will be. In April, we will organize activities involving everyone. The preparations are underway. Once the things are almost finalized, we will make an announcement for Happy Hong Kong. Now it's all about making people happy spending to shore up the economy in April. So by the end of April, there will be activities. Howard, please. For people who come here under various admission schemes, we obtained some figures from the Immigration Department. So there will be roughly 100,000 people. There are various admission schemes. They involve talent admission schemes, schemes for entrepreneurs, professionals. For the existing schemes, there are roughly 8 to 9 admission schemes like that. Next question. At the far end, second last row, the lady in denim jacket. I'm from Ta Kung Pao. A question about the timetable. The Easter holidays are a good time to boost consumption. So why not disperse the vouchers before Easter? Are there reasons for that? Mr. Howard Lee. And we considered dispersing the vouchers before the long holidays during Easter. That's a 4-day long weekend. On the first day of disbursement, people may run into issues, especially for seniors. There will be a 4-day public holiday and no one will be there to help. Having considered that, we have decided to strike a balance. But that's just one of the reasons. The primary reason is this. As I said, from 6 p.m. today all the way to March 29th, there will be a window for those who have lost their Octopus card or misplaced their card for whatever reasons, or they have obtained a Draw You card and returned their old card. We want to have this window for them to update their registration details. There are tens of thousands of people who will need time to make the update. And then we get the information, we have to update the records. The records have to go to the payment platforms and they have to update their records before the disbursement. And then the payment platforms also have to change their backend systems. All these steps take time. So we think April 16th is the safer date. Thank you.
Next, on the last row, the gentleman in white. I'm from the Hong Kong Economic Times. For the eligibility criteria for the second installment, will it be the same? And for the second installment, will you be adding more payment platforms? And have you checked which platforms are the most popular from previous experience? Well, for some platforms, they have more account holders and others have fewer, but then this is their commercial secret, so we are not at liberty really to give you information about the different platforms in terms of usage. As for the details for the disbursement of the second installment, we will make an announcement later. Thank you. And what the gentleman in red? I'm from News. Now, for Hong Kong residents aged 18 above or new arrivals, they are eligible. So 18 years of age, at what date are we talking about for someone to be 18 years of age? And some have asked, why can't you give out the vouchers in one installment? Why do you have to break it down into 2 installments? Now, as to when a person will become eligible upon turning 18, we will make the announcement later. Your second question, why aren't we giving out the vouchers in one go? Well, I hope you would appreciate that. When it comes to consumer vouchers, the purpose is for us to stimulate the economy. And we find from previous experience, every time we disperse consumer vouchers, the retail sales went up for that month or even for that quarter. So if we give out vouchers in different installments, there will be a better effect in stimulating the economy. But of course, we know that the public don't want to have too many installments. That's why we are proposing such 2 installments. We hope that's the right balance. Two more, or one last person to ask questions. The gentleman in green. I'm from Hong Kong 01. For those who've emigrated, they won't be eligible. But how do you judge whether they've emigrated? Will you just check if they've withdrawn the MPF benefits? And if they received, let's say if they received the first installment this year, but how do you judge if they're still eligible for the second installment? That is, they've emigrated. As for new registrants, is there a deadline for registration? And then for persons admitted under different admission schemes, when do they have to arrive in Hong Kong, or when do they have to be granted a visa before they become eligible for the consumption vouchers? Howard, well, first question, how do we judge whether a person has emigrated? Now, in Hong Kong, we have freedom of movements. So we don't have a strict definition for emigration, but we will rely on objective criteria to assess whether a person has acted in such a way that shows a permanent departure from Hong Kong. We look at 3 aspects primarily. One, first, as the Financial Secretary, we're going to announce soon the date for eligibility. That is, someone in the past 36 months before the eligibility date, is that person continuously absent from Hong Kong? That's the first criteria. Second is whether a person has withdrawn his MPF or also benefits on the ground of permanent departure from Hong Kong. And third aspect is whether the Hong Kong ID card was issued in Hong Kong or not. And then we may also consider other relevant factors apart from these 3 factors. But then we consider primarily these 3 factors to decide whether a person has permanently left Hong Kong or has the intention to permanently live Hong Kong. The second question about the deadline for eligibility for the new round. Well, as the Financial Secretary pointed out, we will make the announcement later when we about the second installment. And as to when someone arrives at Hong Kong again, it depends on the eligibility date for the new round that we're going to set. Last to ask questions, this gentleman here. I'm from in media. Now, would it be the last time that you're dispersing consumption vouchers, or can the public expect that there will be further disbursement of consumption vouchers in future? Well, as you know, the consumption voucher scheme is expensive. If we you ask if the consumption voucher scheme will become a regular scheme, well, it's probably not feasible. As to what we're going to do next year, we'll have to look at the prevailing circumstances. We have to look at the economy and the social situation then. Thank you so much for coming to this press conference. Thank you.
Thank you.